Our final contestant today is Jay Bateman. So, Coach, we'll have these guys fire away at you. So.
Save the best for last.
That's right, absolutely.
Coach, can you explain the key schematic components of your defense that differentiates it and makes it what it is? That's pretty broad.
Yeah. I think the main thing I try to do is I try to find who our best 11 players are and play those guys. And so if you have a defense that, no, I have to have this kind of guy and this kind of guy, and you don't have that kind of player or that player gets hurt, all of a sudden the defense suffers. So you need to have enough multiplicity in your defense that you can manipulate your coverages, your run fronts, however you're trying to defend people with who's available to you. Coach at West Point, you better be able to, use some different body types at times. And so I think that's kind of it. So I know a lot of people get caught up in, is it a 3-4, is it a 4-3? I think that's really overrated nowadays because everybody does a little bit of both anyway. So I think we're going to be pretty multiple and try to find out that week, based on who we're playing, what we think the best way to handle them would be.
So what is the benefit of being multiple, have multiple fronts like that?
I think if you line up the same way every time and they know where you are and they know what coverage you're going to be in, I think it's very easy to attack you. And I think the thing offense coordinators have gotten so much better at in the last 15 years or so is they will take the easy play all the time. So used to be you could kind of play off and you saw the same 4 or 5 plays. Like most teams we play now, they don't run the same play twice. So I think on defense, what I try to do now is if you just try to be, it used to be like I'm going to be in one coverage, I'm going to be in one front, and we're going to defend everything, and our kids are going to know how to do it. I think now they kill you if you do that. So my thing is now I'm going to call defensive plays. You're going to have to. I'm going to dictate to you, right? We're going to solve, and I say this all the time. We solve our problems with aggression. Like if I'm pressuring, and you have to deal with that, that limits how many plays you can run, and so that's a little bit of the philosophy, but. We're going to be in 2 down, 3 down, 4 down, 5 down. We're going to be in whatever it takes. You better stop the run, right? If you don't stop the run, you don't stop anything. So you better stop the run, and then from that point it becomes, okay, how do you handle the pass game, and how do you not give up layup throws that they can get out of jail with? So that's kind of how it all starts.
What is the origin of your philosophy, and how much have you tweaked it over the years, aside from personnel, just the overall philosophy that you have?
So like Dre Bly asked me this when I first got here. Like I think I've been pretty lucky that I was a defense coordinator. I was 23 years old, and from that point, I've all but 1 year I've been calling the defense. So, it's unfortunate for me that I never worked for one guy that I can say, hey, look, it started off with as his defense. Does that make sense? And I took from him. I was a D coordinator when I was young. I was head coach when I was young, and I would go visit people and steal from everybody. So I think, certainly Dave Aranda's a good friend, and a lot of the stuff stems from him. Mike Elko's a good friend. A lot of the stuff stems from him, where I've visited with those guys. But a lot of it has been trial and error, what works, what doesn't work. And kind of what I believe is, we're going to try to create this image, this belief that, gosh, there's so much defense. And I saw time like I try to pass the stress down the hallway. So if you're not careful, all the stress falls in the secondary. They got to handle all the adjustments. You call it this and you call it this, and then they have to learn all these different techniques. Well, I kind of believe in passing the stress down. So if we can run the same blitz out of 4 different fronts, right? That's 4 blitzes for the offensive coordinator, right? For us, it's 1 blitz. And so if you can do that right now, it just becomes the multiplicity just becomes overwhelming for the offense. I've had some offense coordinators tell me, like, you guys got 100 blitzes. We have 6. We teach them 6, right? And then we do it out of this front and out of this disguise and out of this front. And then we move this guy over, and they just switch jobs. And they mark it all down as a different blitz, but it's not. It's 6 blitzes.
The players have described it as controlled chaos. How quickly or how long did it take for them to go from having big eyes when you're explaining them what they're going to do to actually understand it is controlled chaos? It's a lot simpler once you're inside of it and understand it.
Well, I think the thing we try to do, I think the assistant coaches have done a good job with me installing it, is you show them what the picture looks like to the offense. So you have a call and you freeze the screen and you say, okay, what else could this be the way we're aligned for the offense? Could this guy be blitzing? Could this guy be blitzing? Could this guy be blitzing? Yes. Okay, so we have to make that look the same. And so when the threat is that everyone is a blitzer, and then they have to protect all those guys, and now the running back's got to go from that guy to that guy, and the guard's got to go from that guy to that guy, and then when you do come, right now it causes some confusion. So I think part of it is teaching them how the disguise piece of it, the looks of it all work together. And then I think again, it goes back to, hey, look, for the secondary, we call it this. You don't care who's rushing. You know 2 guys are dropping and they're in coverage with you in this coverage. Don't worry about it right now, who's blitzing. That'll come later. And then for the D-line, you say, okay, look, you guys are doing this. Don't worry about what the coverage is. And then you're able to piece it all together and it becomes a multiple attack.
Why do you think being aggressive is so important? And like, at what point did you realize that blitzing is such a so not many
Yeah, so like Coach Brown said after spring game, like we blitz every play.
Yeah.
Like, so this is just my opinion, all right? So to me, I think a normal pass rusher is 4 guys. All right, so you asked earlier about to me, this is Revolutionary War defense, right? In the Revolutionary War, you lined up 10 guys and I lined up 10 guys and we shot at each other. And if my 10 guys shot better than your 10 guys, I kept moving forward. Eventually, ran out of guys. That's a hard way to play defense, all right? Because I think you line up with 4 guys, and those are the 4 guys rushing, and block those 4 guys, and they can only do so many things from those alignments. My thing is, if I can rush 4 guys and make you not know where the 4th one's coming from or the 3rd and 4th one is coming from, then I have a way better chance of getting a better pass rush. And so a lot of times when people say we're blitzing, we're only rushing 4 guys. So if I line up in a 4-3 and I rush the 4 down guys and played cover 2, you say, okay, that's 4-3 cover 2. We do that a lot. But the 4th guy rushing doesn't have his hand on the ground, and the offensive guys can't say that's the guy, right? They have to figure out who the 4th guy is, and then if that guy comes and the coverage does this, it's still cover 2. Does that make sense? So I think that's kind of been my mindset is if I can get the running back to have to block one of our rushers one-on-one and not sacrifice coverage, that's what I want to do. And so I think every time you add one more rusher, it's simple math, right? You take away from the coverage. So if you're rushing 4 and dropping 7, you can play all the coverages known to man, right? If you rush 5 and drop 6, well, now there start to be holes in the coverage. And then if you rush 6, now there's major holes in the coverage. Last year in Army we rushed 6 once, right? There are teams that we will play in the first 2 games that will rush 6 all the time. That's a lot of stress on your back end. So my thing is I want to try. It's my job, I think, to try to find a way to bring the least amount of players and have the most in coverage and create the most havoc. That's
Jay, how important is it, or how much does it matter what kind of offense the team runs that you were coaching defense for? And does it matter that Army ran a certain style of offense in your
yeah, I mean, so I got asked that a lot. In Army, we slowed the game down. And what happened was, we were in a lot of games that were 24-21 and 21-17, and because there were limited possessions. Part of the reason we did that in Army was the talent level we had at certain positions. And so I think, obviously with Phil, we're probably going to go a little bit faster than that, would be my guess. Not positive, but that would be my gut. So, the main reason in Army we did it was our depth at Army wasn't great. If we played our starting 11, we were pretty good. You start getting to our next group of guys, there was in some spots, in a lot of spots, a pretty steep drop-off. And so that's the biggest thing it did for us. It allowed us to play our top 11 or 12 guys more percentage-wise in the game than if we were playing more. So here, I'm pretty confident we're going to have a little bit more depth. And so I think that becomes a piece of it. And then, what it allows you to do, I think, is identify some kids that maybe are younger kids that can, I can put this young kid in, and I know he can do these couple things and do it really well, and I can steal 5 or 10 snaps from him until he's ready to handle more of the bulk of the defense. So that's part of it. But my thing with offensive guys is just score a bunch of points. We'll be fine. It makes it easy.
You've talked a lot about sort of positionless football. Do you think having strict positions is sort of a thing of the past?
I think the more a kid can do, the more likely you can use him to create havoc. So if you have a defensive end who can drop into coverage and do a pretty good job in coverage, that allows you to bring a fourth rusher that's not him and cause issues, you know. So I think part of it, people talk about hybrids all the time. Like, to me, a hybrid, like that's a great term, but to me, everybody on our defense has to be a hybrid. Like, you got to be able to go out and cover at some point if you're a linebacker. They're going to put you in a formation. They're going to put you in a situation where you have to go cover. And then our safeties have got to be involved in the run defense. Our corners have to be involved in the run defense. So I think the more skills a player has, the more I can use him, the more we can use him to create mismatches against the offense.
That kind of leads into the rush in outside linebacker positions, the hybrids, whatever. I mean, can you kind of explain that role, the players you're going to see in that role, and kind of their role in the defense?
So I think it really becomes this. Your field outside backer in college football now is the guy that has to do a lot of skills. Right? He's got to be able to be a linebacker, cover the slot defender, cover the slot receiver, play man on that guy, be a cover guy, all that stuff. And so it's hard, I think, to find one guy that can do all that. You're talking about a guy who's got to go play over a tight end and set the edge of the defense and then go out and play man on their best, little guy. Those are hard to find. So for me, what we try to do is, instead of trying to find one guy that does everything okay, is I try to have a bunch of guys that can do a lot of skills really well. I look at it like a bullpen a little bit. You got to have one guy that can get a lefty out in the eighth inning. You got to have a guy that can close the game. So the number one thing they all have to do is rush the passer. And that's like, if you can't rush the passer, then you get moved. And then the second thing becomes, we want guys that are violent edge setters, that can play on the edge, whether they're 6 foot or they're 6'5". Obviously, I would prefer they're 6'5". But guys that can play violent on the edge and be real edge rushers. So the number one thing they have to do is be able to rush the passer off the edge. Does that make sense? So like a 4-3 end, we're recruiting the same kind of guys there, but we're not going to put them in a situation where they got to go in and get in a 3-point stance and get double teamed. That's not what they're in there for. So we're trying to find the guys that are the small defensive ends, the big linebackers that have a skill set that number one will rush the passer, and then two, it kind of from there. Are some guys better cover guys than others? Like, I think Chris is a little bit better cover guy than some of the rest of them right now. So he can do a little bit more in the pass game than some of the other guys can. So we'll move him around, to put him in situations where he's more of a pass defender at times. So all those, it just depends on like Saturday we had 3 of them in the game a lot of the time, right? Because it Fox, Chris, and Jake and all at the same time. So it just depends on who we're playing and with the best scenario for our health and all that stuff at that point.
Does Dominique Ross fit that role at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time for one more.
Coach Bateman mentioned just Jeremiah Gimbel's a guy who defensive guys also. He's a guy to trust. He's kind of, what have been your impressions?
Yeah, I think he's really bright. Football comes easy to him. He's a very instinctive player. I've been pretty happy with him. I mean, I didn't know much about him when I got here. I tried when I first got here. I talked to Tommy a little bit, but I told Tommy when I first got here, like, I want to kind of form my own opinions about guys. I only watched 2 games when I first got here until I started working with him. I didn't want to be clouded by, I saw this guy not make a play or make a play against Pittsburgh. So I tried to form my own opinions. And Jeremiah, to me, as a kid, has been a real pleasant surprise. I think he is a really bright football player, and he's very instinctive. And, some kids' football comes easier to than others. He's a guy you can really rely on. I trust him, too.
Great. Thanks, Coach.